Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for being here Wednesday, April 23rd, which means it is only one day until the first round of the NFL draft. One day until the Jaguars finally make their move. Until James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, Tony Vaselli, and company, their hand is finally revealed. Because it has been a whirlwind of a week. About 7-8 days ago, it was still everybody on the planet mocking Mason Graham to the Jaguars. Now it has shifted to a lot of folks think Ashton Jeanty, maybe a surprise trade up, maybe a surprise trade down. Who knows what it could be? The Jaguars are playing this one close to the vest, and I like that a lot. I think it's going to be really fun. It makes for a lot of intrigue. So right now, we're going to talk about my top fits for the Jaguars. We've been talking about first round most of this week, and for good reason. I mean, the first round is where it all gets kicked off. That's the big event Thursday night. But for me, day 2 is just as exciting. Day 3 starts to get a little bit of a slog, like you've been just grinding for hours and hours and hours, talking about this, watching this stuff. But day 2 is really exciting. And so we're going to take a look at some of my favorite fits for the Jaguars that aren't necessarily round 1, because we've talked so much about round 1. I love Mason Graham. I love Ashton Jeanty, Malachi Starks, Luther Burden. I'd be fine with Tedero McMillan as a compliment to Brian Thomas Jr., even though there's questions about his, football character, intangibly richness, if you will. Y'all know a lot of the guys I love. And if you've been paying attention, you can certainly, and if you haven't been paying attention, you can go back and watch that stuff. So this is going to be more second rounders, third rounders types of guys. Maybe a couple guys sneak into the first round. Just depends on how the board ends up falling. But I'm excited to talk about them because I just love their games, and thinking about like how they would fit with the Jaguars is really exciting. So that's what we're going to do here on this show. Really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Would also like to remind you, we've got Club Jaguar tonight. It's going to be myself, Dalton, UCF Jaguar, Jason from Jaguars United. Club Jaguar going to be live on this channel, going to be live on UCF Jaguars channel. And even more exciting, we are going to be live streaming the entire first round from Bottlenose Brewing tomorrow night. Bottlenose Brewing in Tinseltown. We're going to have 3 mics set up for us. We're going to have a mic set up for fans to come hang out and chat with us as well. We're also going to be, Jason from Jags United is kind enough. He's going to be giving the first 20 people that show up a free beer. And Bottlenose is also going to be having a ton of cool specials. I think you're getting a free beverage with every entree order. And so it's going to be a packed house, going to be a lot of fun. Jaguars watch party for the first round of the NFL draft. And again, we're live streaming the entire first round, bringing our analysis and having a lot of fun doing it. So excited for that. Bottlenose Brewing at Tinseltown tomorrow night. The draft kicks off at 8. We'll be there before that, couple hours before that, getting things going there. So fired up for it. Thank y'all for supporting the channel. Excited to be doing that. And then looking at these guys that I think are my top fits personally for the Jaguars and why I think they make so much sense. Okay. So these aren't necessarily in order. The first guy I wanted to bring up is Jalen Knoll. We have talked about him on the channel, and y'all should be familiar with his game a little bit, but he is a wide receiver out of Iowa State, and his running mate there, Jaden Higgins, is also somebody who I think could be a fit as that bigger bodied guy, outside receiver, maybe a power slot as well. But Jalen Knoll, a little bit smaller in stature and height, but he has a lot of strength. He is a guy that when I think about the Jaguars, when I think about Liam Cohen, going back to last year with the Jags and the last couple years, Christian Kirk has been the Jaguars' primary slot receiver when healthy. He's been darn good when healthy. Obviously, he's gone now, and he's with the Texans. But the Jags could still use a really good slot receiver, and I think Jalen Knoll could be Christian Kirk plus. Like, he has more speed than Christian Kirk, but the similar ability to stretch the field vertically. I think you can see him winning vertically from the slot, which is really dangerous. When you have a slot receiver with as much explosiveness as he has and route running savvy and strength, he's a very strong player. undersized height-wise, but very strong, it makes it incredibly difficult for nickel defenders, for safeties, for linebackers to keep up with these guys. Because in the slot, you have these two-way goes constantly. You can cut inside, you can cut outside. When you're watching receiver play and when you're watching DB play, if you're a receiver playing outside, close to the out of bounds line, it limits your ability to use the entire field, right? But if you're aligned in the slot, if you're aligned tighter to the line of scrimmage, you have the ability to use a lot more grass. And so you have the two-way go. And then with the vertical speed that Jalen Noel has, you also have the ability to get upfield, that slot fade that Trevor Lawrence loves to throw. Brian Thomas Jr. is really good at it. Christian Kirk was really good at it. But I think Jalen Noel has more speed than Kirk, more strength than Kirk, and he's better in contested catch situations because I think he's a more explosive player with more consistent hands. So I think you could talk about getting Christian Kirk plus. And I'm seeing we're losing our focus here. Maybe we need to turn the light on. Still working on the studio, y'all. Still don't have the lighting down perfect. But Jalen Noel, I think, could be like, again, if Christian Kirk is like a minus B plus version of that type of player, I think Jalen Noel could be like the A plus version. And I think with his speed and route running and strength and his ability to win in contested catch situations, he could actually also be a Z receiver, right? So you can move him around the formation a lot. You can get him the ball in a lot of different ways. He's just a really fun guy to watch. I highly encourage y'all check him out. The number 2 and 3 guys I wanted to talk about, we've talked about a lot of different prospects on this channel, as y'all know if you've been paying attention. But 2 guys that don't get as much pub as like a Mason Graham, right? Derek Harmon and Darius Alexander. And I think, I have them graded in a similar range. I think the NFL is higher on Derek Harmon. So if the Jaguars were going to land Derek Harmon, it might have to be in a trade down situation from 5, which a lot of people have talked about the Jaguars being interested in trading down. I have no idea how high they are on Derek Harmon, but to me, his level of completeness as a prospect, he's 21, so he's a young guy. He dominated this past year at Oregon. He dropped weight going from Michigan State to Oregon and looked like, potentially high impact 3 technique who can also, be very stout for you and kick inside to 1 if you need him to. That's not going to be his primary role, but he just has everything that you could ask for. The tape is outstanding. The production is outstanding, both as a run stuffer and as a interior penetrator, someone who can, really make life hell for quarterbacks. He has the length. He has the athleticism. He has it all. So to me, Derek Harmon is a player that could just really help any team. I don't think he needs to be scheme specific. I think he can move around a little bit, and I think he's just going to really upgrade your overall level of play on your defensive line. And I think you'd say the same thing about Darius Alexander, where I think he's going to be versatile. I think he's going to be able to upgrade your interior defensive line, where I think Derek Harmon has a little bit more strength overall and an ability to kind of anchor against doubles. I think Darius Alexander is more of that 3 to 5 tech, where this is a guy that you really just want to try to get upfield because he studies his opponents really well and he's able to quickly utilize whatever moves and whatever kind of techniques his opponents struggle with. Extremely athletic as well. Tested out of his mind, played great football at the Senior Bowl, great football the last couple of years at Toledo. He is an older prospect, but I wouldn't let that slow me down from trying to add him, and he could probably be had in the 2nd round. So this is a guy that the Jaguars could probably, if they don't go interior defensive line early on in the draft at the 5th overall pick or whatever ends up happening there, if they trade down, trade up, whatever, if they need to get an interior defensive lineman on day 2, I think Darius Alexander could be that guy. Has every pass rush move you could ask for. He is technical and stout against the run. I just don't know that you're going to ask him to ever take on double teams as like a nose tackle type of player, right? I don't think that's the best utilization of his skill set. But he's over 300 pounds. He's got great length. He's got great explosiveness, tested really well. Again, outstanding tape, outstanding Senior Bowl, outstanding combine. So it all kind of stacks up for Darius Alexander. So those are two guys I'd really love to see on the interior of the defensive line for the Jaguars. At 4, Jack Besh, and he's a specifically for the Jaguars. Like I don't love him for every single team. I don't think you want to draft him and have to force him into a situation where he's like your highest volume number 1 receiver. I don't think he's going to be ready to be that guy early on. That would surprise me. But B, the fit with the Jaguars is so strong because he can be a power slot. He can be a ball winner, 6'2", 215. I think caught like over 60% of his contested catch opportunities, does not put the ball on the ground. If you get the ball in his vicinity, Jack Besh is coming down with it. All that stuff is great. But what really makes him a fit is his dirty work ability. Beyond all the actual catching the football, getting open, making contested catches, he's going to be a great blocker at the next level, and the Jaguars are going to be a screen-heavy team. They're going to be a team that likes to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers quickly, and Jack Besh can help you facilitate that. And he's willing and able. So I love that about him. And I think as a complimentary receiver to a Brian Thomas Jr., and as someone who formerly played at LSU as well, Brian Thomas Jr.'s former teammate, it could be a really cool fit. At 5, switching sides of the ball again, going to the defensive secondary. Somebody who we talked a lot about early on and just haven't talked about as much lately because I've been waiting a little bit to draft safety. But if the Jaguars want to go get a safety, the second round, maybe third round if they're lucky, Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. I think that his combination of savvy, smarts, instincts, the ability to read the football game, and aggressiveness and coverage just creates so many turnovers. And then you also see him as a very consistent tackler for the most part, usually takes very good angles to the ball. I think he's going to be the type of free safety that you could pair with Eric Murray and suddenly see this room look like it went from one of the weakest rooms in football in 2024 to an actual positive, net positive for the Jaguars in 2025 and beyond. So Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, just one of these guys that consistently gets his hands on the football, creates turnovers, gets interceptions. So I think that's somebody who the Jaguars could really use on the back end, and I like the fit. I like the way he plays the game. At number 6, we're talking about another receiver. And again, I told you all that this wasn't in order. It's not organized. It's just 10 dudes that I really think would be cool to see wearing some teal at the next level. Jalen Royals out of Utah State. Jalen Royals to me is kind of like, if you can't get Luther Burden, he might be the next best thing in that mold. And might end up being a better value. Like you might be able to get Jalen Royals in the 3rd round. Super explosive. And I mean super explosive. This is a guy that had a foot injury during the season this year, and it held him out the year, and he fought back to get to the Senior Bowl. Didn't quite look 100% himself in terms of the explosiveness, but then he gets to the combine, comes in at 6 foot 205. I think he has inside-outside versatility. 4.42 40-yard dash is very good. What's so crazy about him is the 1.49-10 split. That means he is absolutely flying off the line of scrimmage. Only one other receiver had a 1.49-10 split. That was Matthew Golden. Okay? So Jalen Royals can roast you early on. He can create such great separation early on in routes. Just with that explosive ability off the line, that 10-yard split, it consistently shows up as well. And at 6 foot 205, he has a lot of strength in his frame, a lot of lower body strength as well. He kind of has the in my mind, the physical profile and the production profile of someone who could be like a true high volume number 1 wide receiver. and you could get him on day 2 of the draft. And I think that his ability to get yards after catch in the screen game, fantastic. He also, another one of these guys that doesn't really let the ball hit the ground, good in contested catch situations, good when it comes to not having the focus drops. I mean, you pull up the numbers for him. Receiving. So 5.2% drop rate this past year. For his career, he's 64.1% contested catch rate. Forces a lot of missed tackles. I think that he could be a real steal in the draft, and I think that he'd be. If you had two guys that fast off the line in Jalen Royals and Brian Thomas Jr., you could really, really scare some opponents with that speed. And at number 7 here is somebody who certainly is not scaring you with his speed, but he is scaring the crap out of you. And number 7 and 8 are two guys, really 3 guys, because we'll talk about 7 and 8, but there's one other guy that I think really fits along with this mold here. Okay, so Tyler Booker at 7, Kyle Monangai at 8. I think Tyler Booker, there's a reason he's being overthought. He didn't test well. Based on his tape, you wouldn't expect him to test well. I think teams that want to run a lot of gap power scheme, teams that want to have a balanced rushing attack, Tyler Booker makes a lot of sense. If you want to be like a pure outside zone rushing attack, if that's what you want to be your calling card as an offense, probably Tyler Booker doesn't make that much sense. But to me, if you have the ability to draft Tyler Booker in the second round, you should say we can work with that and we can work our offense around that, because the advantages that he's going to give us are so strong. From a leadership standpoint, an attitude standpoint, like he wants to make his opponent stop loving the game of football. He wants to destroy their will. And you see that on the field consistently. He's huge. Mountain of a man, unbelievable wingspan, unbelievable strength. And he blows people up in the run game. Again, gap power, moving forward, point of attack type stuff. And then in pass protection, you're just not getting past him. And he's creating these pockets that quarterbacks can step up into, right? Like there's a lot of interior offensive linemen that they get the job done. They don't let the quarterback get hit. But if you're talking about creating a wall in front of Trevor Lawrence, Tyler Booker is going to do that more than any other interior offensive lineman in this class. Outside of maybe like a Will Campbell, if you plug him in there at left guard. So I love Tyler Booker, man. I really do. And going along with that, if you wanted to become more of this smash mouth rushing offense, and I think you really can with Robert Hainsey and Patrick McCary and Tyler Booker, Kyle Monangai, I think he's going to be a day 3 pick. To me, when I watch him, he reminds me a lot of Bucky Irving. And he's about the same height as Bucky, but he's got a lot more mass, a lot more strength on his frame than Bucky Irving did. But they run similarly. And I was just, there's a shiftiness and explosiveness to them, a short area acceleration and burst where they're just able to create separation between them and defenders trying to track them down and chase them down. Neither of them has great long speed. Bucky Irving, at like 190 pounds, ran like a 4.55 40-yard dash. People are like, oh no. Saw what he did in the NFL. Kyle Monangai at 5'8", 211, 4.6 flat. Not great. And you see that on tape with both of these guys. The long speed isn't there. But with both of these guys, you're expecting to hit a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, and a lot of triples. And I think if you can get that, that can help out your offense a ton. And you're also just not seeing the negatives, the negative plays a lot out of a Kyle Monangai or a Bucky Irving. And it was interesting. I was like, both these guys are so explosive. Exact same 10-yard split for both of them. And they're 40 times, not very impressive. 10 split times, much more impressive. And then you just have like a natural feel and a low center of gravity small target for opposing defenders. Like, it's just hard to get a good hit on either of these guys because of how low they are to the ground. Kyle Monangai has even more strength and power to run through tackles. I think be that short yardage guy, help you out on goal line, help you out short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, not having to rely on Trevor Lawrence every time to get it done himself with a quarterback sneak, which Trevor Lawrence is really good at. But you want to keep Trevor healthy. Kyle Monangai going to help you do that. Another player who, to me, would fit in that mold of leaning into the power rushing, Damian Martinez, who I can't say he's my favorite running back in this class. I can't do it because I love Ashton Genty. I love Travion Henderson. I really like Kyle Monangai. But Damian Martinez is one of my favorite running backs in this class. Very young player. I think he just turned 21 or is about to turn 21. He is incredibly, and he's taller. I usually prefer shorter backs. Again, they have a lower strike zone, smaller strike zone. They have a lower center of gravity. They're just harder to get down a lot. But Damian Martinez, even though he's 6 feet, I just love the way he plays the game. I think he's got that vision and patience that a lot of these good backs do. But I also think when he gets to the second level, he moves different than a guy that's like plays at like 225, 230 pounds from a lateral agility standpoint. He can leave second level defenders in the dust just like with a little shimmy, with a juke move, plant your foot in the ground and then go the other direction. And then he can also run you over, and the ability to do both of those things makes him a very dangerous back and someone who, again, I think is going to get a lot of singles, doubles, triples, maybe not the home runs that you would ideally get out of like a Ashton Genty or Travion Henderson, but he's going to get you a lot of big time runs. A couple more guys on the defensive line that I wanted to close it out with. Nick Scorton, and we have talked about him recently. I just think if he falls to 36 or anywhere close to 36, the Jaguars should get on the phone and try to get this guy in the building because he's been overthought. Look, he went to Texas A&M this past year. They asked him to put on too much weight. That's what they did. He was playing in the 280s, a guy that played closer to like 260, 265 the year before and dominated at Purdue as a 19-year-old. Can't forget, Nick Scorton is still only 20 years old. You saw him drop the weight for the combine. He didn't do all the testing, but he did the on-field work, and he looked incredibly explosive. He came to the combine at 257. I think he has some of that Jared verse to him. And I think he has even more fluidity, a wider variety of pass rush moves, and even more upside. Again, only 20 years old. 6'4", came in the combine at 257 pounds. In 2023, as a 19-year-old, he had 42 pressures, 8 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 28 hurries, 34 tackles, 32 stops at Purdue. He dominated. I think it's all there for Nick Scorton. I think he just went to the wrong situation last year, and it is really negatively impacting his draft stock. If the Jaguars have any chance to get him, even like going back into the first round to get him, I would strongly consider it, and especially if he's there at 36. I mean, that would be unbelievable. He came in at 6'4", 257 pounds at the combine, 6'3", 257, 33-inch arms. And look, if y'all haven't been paying attention, the combine arm length measurements were atrocious. They were way off. I think almost all of them were shorter than what they were. If you compare guys that went to the Senior Bowl and the combine and then the pro days to the combine, they were way off. And so that was the first time I can really remember that happening. I think Scorton probably has longer than 33-inch arms. Doesn't really matter in the long run because I think he's explosive off the ball. I think he can rush through you. I think he can create speed to power. But then he's also got the outside spin, the inside spin, cross chop. He can line up as an interior pass rusher as well. I love the guy. I really do. And speaking of interior pass rushers, TJ Sanders from South Carolina, I think would be such a cool fit for the Jaguars. Another one where if they don't go get a guy in the first round as an interior defensive lineman, I think TJ Sanders could be a match made in heaven just based on what they've looked for recently in LA. When you talk about Braden Fisk, you talk about Kobe Turner. TJ Sanders is 6'4", 297, 33 and an eighth arms. He has longer arms than that. 10 and a quarter hands, 31 and a half inch vert, 9'4" broad jump, 7'7" three cone, 4'6", 20-yard shuttle. He looked really impressive in the on-field work. Didn't do the 40 and all that stuff, but looked really impressive in the on-field work. I think he's going to be a plus interior pass rusher that you can get on day 2 of the draft. He uses his length to keep offensive linemen off his chest to be able to dictate. So he actually has some usefulness in the run game thanks to his ability to stack and shed and, again, keep his chest clean. But as an interior pass rusher, he's got a dynamic skill set, explosiveness off the ball, a lot of different hand moves and hand fighting, relentless effort. So I like TJ Sanders a lot, and it was kind of expected he might come in at a lower weight than 297, but coming in at 297 I think was really good for him, and I think he's going to be a guy that has a really long, prolific career, could fit the bill for what the Jaguars are looking for in an interior defensive lineman. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.